On live now from Fox, I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us on the breaking news coverage of Charlie Kirk, murdered at the age of 31. A live look right now at the White House. A little bit later, we will play out more of President Trump speaking on the life of Charlie Kirk and the message that he brought to millions across the country. We'll play that out in just a little bit here on Live Now from Fox. But I do want to continue to showcase more lawmakers earlier today speaking out.
That's something that a lot of us were talking about on the House floor. I've got some of the most death threats in Congress, but today really isn't about me. And I think I just keeping my focus on Charlie's wife and his 2 young children, and of course his family and the whole Turning Point USA family. And it's the worst thing. Shocking, and everyone's really devastated. My children are devastated. Just everyone I know. There really aren't words.
Can you speak to his importance to the conservative movement, to your own political rise?
I really think what was great about Charlie Kirk, and I was just telling Tia this, is he would go on college campuses and tell young people to get married and have children, and just talk about how wonderful it is to be married and have children. And he shared the Word of God. He was a Christian, and he shared the gospel of Jesus Christ, and he encouraged young people. And he also would have debates on ideas on college campuses, which, I mean, that's our First Amendment, and college campuses have always been a place for that. And I believe today he was killed for the words that he says and the things that he stood for. And we're honestly shocked. We're devastated, shocked, and angry. And those are just natural feelings.
How close were you to him?
Charlie Kirk was a friend. He was a good friend. I spoke at many of his events over the years. Knew him when he was a lot younger. And I mean, he's not much older than my oldest daughter, but I just think it's really, honestly, horrific.
What kind of legacy does he leave behind to the conservative?
Charlie Kirk leaves a huge legacy. It's going to be hard for anybody to fill his shoes. He was extremely important. Students all over the country would get very excited if they found out he was coming to their college campus. He brought in thousands of people to hear him speak. Even people that didn't agree with him would come, ask questions, even argue with him. He was always about the debate, and Charlie Kirk was never for violence. And to see him murdered in such a graphic way in front of the camera, and that video is too gruesome. Honestly, I hope it gets taken down. I don't think his wife or children one day should ever see it. I really hope it gets taken down. But I'm at a loss for words, and I'm not often at a loss for words.
How concerned are you about your own safety in the wake of this attack? I mean, you know, he's a giant on the right. You were a giant on the right.
Yeah, he had asked me that too. Of course, I am very concerned. I have some of the most death threats in Congress, and they're always ongoing. But again, today it's not about me. Today it's about Charlie and his wife and his family and everyone that's mourning his loss. So, thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you.
All right, Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking just a little bit ago on Capitol Hill. You are watching Live Now from Fox, everyone. We are going to take another 2-minute break. We will be back with more in moments. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Continuing breaking news tonight of the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. The Utah governor saying that this is a political assassination and the suspect still on the loose. Tonight, an active manhunt is going on right now. The FBI is assisting. They have boots on the ground, continuing to work this case, trying to locate the person responsible at killing Charlie Kirk. I want to also show you this. This is from Michael Ruiz, Fox News Digital, saying that UVU just announced an all clear after locking down campus for hours and escorting people to safety following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So they're giving an all clear there on campus, despite that suspect still on the loose. We are trying to learn more information about that. But right now, I want to continue to bring you the latest reports and the latest statement by President Trump just a little bit ago on the life of Charlie Kirk.
I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died. Tonight, I ask all Americans of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before. and it's not even close. May God bless his memory. May God watch over his family. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
All right. President Trump speaking just a little bit ago, recording that and putting that out on his Truth Social account. We are going to take a 2-minute break. Stay right here with us. The manhunt continues for the suspect. Police first initially thought they had somebody detained and questioning. After the questioning, they released that person, and now they are back to square one in this investigation. We'll break it down all down for you coming up in just a bit on Live Now. And we are back here for you on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us, continuing to bring you the breaking news coverage of Charlie Kirk, murdered in Utah at his event. The Utah governor calling it a political assassination. We've heard already from President Trump. We'll play that out for you a little bit later, just in case if you're just joining us here on Live Now from Fox. But really, the big news since this shooting, though, is that the suspect's still on the loose. An active manhunt is going on right now in Utah. Before, they did have a person detained. They were questioning that person, but then we hear from FBI Director Kash Patel saying the subject in custody has been released after an interrogation by law enforcement. Our investigation continues, and we will continue to release information in interest of transparency. So I want to obviously continue to talk about this. Let's bring in our next guest to help break down what the investigation might look like right now in this hour. Scott Duffy, former FBI agent, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And yeah, this is a story now where we think, okay, maybe we have someone detained, they're going to be the suspect, and now it looks like it's back to square one.
Yeah, good evening, Micah. Thanks for having me on. It is back to square one, and I tell you, it's somewhat of a roller coaster ride that I haven't seen. I would say not only in my career, my post-career, with as much attention that is being put on people in custody, detained, questioned, and then released, and it's kind of leaving the public to believe, okay, it's all clear and safe to return. So I'm skeptical about anything that's released with regards to a person who's been detained. I don't like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still so fluid right now. Where okay, so what happens, or when a shooting happens with a large event like this taking place at this campus in Utah? They have an idea that this person was on a roof. I mean, what are they looking at as far as security and everything else when it comes to videotapes around?
Yeah, you and I no different than the rest of the world who are combing through all their social media videos, everything that's being put out with regards to the audience, this individual that I think we have all seen, this figure on a rooftop. So, and you can imagine that there's probably many more photos and videos that are out there that are helping police, helping the FBI and other law enforcement agencies to narrow down the search. So, like anything else that we have discussed, unfortunately, with these tragedies, active shooters, mass shooters, attempt assassinations, as we have seen twice on President Trump's life, and then of course tonight, the unspeakable tragedy of what is being called an assassination and a political assassination with regards to the life of Charlie Kirk. So right now, there was a dragnet when this first took place, as it should be, and as the perimeter is growing because the individual is not in custody, and which each and every passing hour that perimeter continues to expand, if there is even a perimeter as we speak, depending on what they have or have set up, roadblocks, etc. So now they're doing a deep dive, and if we do not see something within a couple hours, that this will turn into a full-fledged fugitive hunt.
Yeah. And Scott, I also want to get your take. Before an event like this happens, when it's outdoor, you have the open air. What is his security team as well as the local law enforcement doing around the perimeter to make sure that it's safe?
Yeah. So you have an individual like this who's a private individual. He is well known, well respected, and at the same time having the polar opposites of those that don't side with his viewpoint, right? So a personal security team, and then of course you have campus security. I've already seen the reports of the police chief there on campus talking about how many were provided. Ultimately, I think they have the intelligence, that is his internal security team, and then shared with law enforcement wherever that Charlie Kirk was going in his past travels to say, hey, this is the intel we have. In other words, what's the level of the threats? Social media, right? There are those acceptable threats that people who just don't disagree with you and they wish you the worst, but you know through law enforcement analysis that it will never go beyond a word. And so I don't know what the internal intelligence was, if there was an escalation of perhaps these type of threats to where they could believe it would be actionable. So typically, if it's not at that level, it's simply just being aware and watching the video of Charlie Kirk being there, kind of getting a gauge of the security. Both in uniform and not in uniform. It seemed like they were more concerned with somebody who's going to jump over a barrier and then kind of be a bodyguard. As you can see by, unfortunately, what we have seen, that everyone was taken off guard. There was absolutely, there's very little reaction. And so that told me nobody was expecting anything. And so I imagine the intelligence of whatever threats were out there were probably pretty low.
Yeah, and do you find that a little interesting? You know, given everything that we know now, we look at Butler, where there was a man on a roof type setting, and now you look at this situation where, you know, it was a bold type of area where you had taller buildings in and around that area. I know hindsight is 20/20, but I mean, do you think it would be, before this guy gets out there, to put up a drone and just kind of look at the roofs to make sure no one's on them?
Yeah, it all comes down to the security protocols. So you have an individual that is a private individual, and of course he's out there in the public um, on many different fronts, not only the political front, but also philosophical, religious. I mean, he is in the forefront of many conservative ideals, but also um, uh, with regards to him specifically going to college campuses and trying to drive the discussion. So it ultimately comes down to him and his security detail. What did he want, and what did his security want to do? And if they were on the same page with let's keep it low key, and the intelligence is not really there to show there is an actionable threat, then yeah, this would be whatever has succeeded in the past will continue to succeed until our intelligence tells otherwise. This unfortunately wasn't a miss where they could have then gone back and say, hey, this totally has to change. So it's just it's unspeakable, it's tragic. But at the same time, as I've heard others talk with regards to, yes, individuals must continue to always feel free to speak their mind, to have free discourse. But in this day and age, we also have to look hard at security protocols and really step it up.
And Scott, I also want to get your take on really, it was jarring communication today with police, the FBI, and local officials there on the ground. We had a statement earlier from Kash Patel, the FBI director, saying that they had a subject that they were going to be questioning. And then at the news conference, just moments later, they say right off the top that they don't have a suspect in custody. And then during the questions from the media, they say, well, we do have a subject right now being questioned, and now we learned that that person has since been let go. So, what do you give here with this jarring communication right now?
Yeah, Micah, there has to be a better. This is not good with regards to communication from any level. So you have law enforcement itself that's contradicting itself from a federal, state, or local agency. So I don't like that, and it ultimately erodes in the public trust to when something is going to happen, people are going to, I'm not so sure because you cried wolf one too many times. It's not good for the public safety because the public needs to know that law enforcement is doing their thing and that they're trying to secure the neighborhood wherever they may be in harm's way in that particular community if they fear this shooter is still somehow in the area. So it gives them a false hope, and then when they see that somebody is not in custody, they're back into that fear, and so it's not good for the community at large, and especially not good for the ultimate messaging from law enforcement that really needs to be coming from one source, and it must be tested before it goes out to the public. And so I would just say that at this point we should be very careful in putting anything out there with regards to somebody being in custody.
And Scott, what do you make here of this suspect there that we, of course, we don't know too much about right now, still on the loose. But, it would seem like in this situation that this person would probably want to go out in a blaze of glory and maybe either get caught right away or shoot themselves at the scene, maybe with a handgun. But for this person to shoot and kill Charlie and then just kind of escape without incident, it seems a little bit different.
Yeah, this is a little bit different, and I've heard whether it's professional, not professional. I can definitely say trained. Going back to the assassination, the murder of the U.S. healthcare CEO. Again, was this individual trained? Was it a professional? And then, of course, we see the outcome. Someone who is very strongly intent on killing not only the CEO that he targeted, but generally going out there to look for others in targeting the U.S. healthcare. So here you have an individual that really, I would say, is well trained. I don't know the exact yardage if that's been put out there, but I've heard anywhere from 50 to 200 yards either way, that's a considerable amount of time for just a novice. For someone who is mentally ill that all of a sudden decides to get a gun, maybe not having practice with the gun, then to get it onto a roof and to be able to fire one round, not a bunch of rounds, and to hit their target. So I do believe in the proficiency of this individual. There's no doubt in my mind if it's a targeted event as opposed to a random mass shooting where a person is going in to do the most harm in the shortest period of time. And ultimately, if they're not taken into custody by law enforcement, they meet their demise either by suicide or by law enforcement encounter. And they have no escape. It would seem to me this person stayed at a distance, had planned, had surveilled, knew exactly what was going on, knew the layout, and had an escape plan. And they were successful in that. So it's a combination of perhaps lack of law enforcement that was in and around the scene, because this was even though it was a well-tended event, it is a low-key event in the sense that did Charlie Kirk and his team decide, hey, we're not looking to build up a high security as you would have for a presidential or some other protectee. So there's no doubt in my mind this person is well trained, had thought a lot about it, planned, and is well trained with the weapon to be able to have pulled this off and to be able to escape.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Scott, thanks so much again for joining us on Live Now from Fox and giving us some great insights into the investigation, what will be happening, and hopefully soon suspect arrested.
Thank you, Mike.
You take care. All right, everybody, I want to take you now right outside of the hospital, presumably where Charlie Kirk's body is. You could see that there is a lot of people coming out in support. They have American flags. The police right now are continuing to stand by here in this area in Utah of the hospital. So many people just wanting to come out and again, just pay in respect to Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. Very, very difficult scenes that we all did see earlier today on social media. If you saw the video, just horrible to see one person you see life and they're talking and then the next moment they are shot and killed there, and life taken away so soon and so violently. But again, we have people coming out and again wanting to show their respect to Charlie Kirk and his family after this very, very difficult time. You got people just lined up on the sidewalk there. And just a little bit ago, we did see some police vehicles leaving the hospital as well. But still a very, very sad scene that is playing out not only in Utah, but across the country as people continue to learn the news of Charlie Kirk dead at the age of 31. The Utah governor says it is a political assassination, being killed because someone doesn't like what is being said. You are watching Live Now from Fox. We'll take a 2-minute break and be back with more. Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. We appreciate you continuing to join us on this terrible night, continuing the breaking news coverage of Charlie Kirk murdered at an event today in Utah. That suspect still on the loose right now. I want to give you a live look right here of more supporters coming out at the hospital where Charlie Kirk is and his body is, and more people just continuing to bring out American flags and just trying to pay respect to his family as well. I also want to show you First Lady Melania Trump putting out a statement on X saying, Charlie's children will be raised with stories instead of memories, photographs instead of laughter, and silence where their father's voice should have echoed. Charlie Kirk's life should serve as a symbolic reminder that compassionate awareness elevates family, love, and country. First Lady Melania Trump there once again putting out that statement and reacting to the tragic news of Charlie Kirk dead at the age of 31. All right, more live feeds coming in. And in just a little bit, we will be going out to some of our sister stations as they will have reporters continuing to work this story as well. And we are just seeing even more and more people, though, come out in Utah for Charlie Kirk. Again, just a moment really where still people are in shock, cannot believe what happened today, and just learning the news too that this suspect is still on the loose. President Trump called this a very dark moment for America. World leaders continue to mourn as well for the Turning Point USA founder who was shot on the college campus. University police chief admits that we didn't cover the bases after the Charlie Kirk shooting, and we'll play out that news conference, even though that coming up in just a little bit, even though that there is conflicting reporting on the actual suspect being detained. So again, we'll be bringing that to you here on Live Now from Fox. But Utah Valley's university-owned police chief acknowledged his department failed to fully secure the campus before conservative activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot during a speech earlier today. And again, we are seeing more video now coming, and we have this motorcade as well of more cars leaving the hospital as well. You would think soon that there would be a vehicle maybe leaving the hospital, going to a coroner's office as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on that for you on Live Now from Fox. Kai Trump, the granddaughter of President Donald Trump, was among the masses who reacted to the horrific shooting death of Charlie Kirk today. President Trump announced that Kirk had died after being shot at a speaking event at Utah Valley University. Kai Trump, who called Kirk a close family friend, couldn't believe the news, saying, "I am deeply saddened to hear the news about Charlie Kirk," she posted on her Instagram stories page. RFK Jr. says once again a bullet has silenced the truth teller following the Charlie Kirk assassination. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. condemned the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, saying once again a bullet has silenced the most eloquent truth teller of our era. Kennedy, who has faced backlash of his own due to his controversial political stances, is the son of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who was assassinated back in 1968, and the nephew of President John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated back in 1963. So again, we are just going to continue to wait for more key updates on Live Now from Fox as more people continue to react of this sad breaking news out of Utah today. I want to show you what Kai Trump did put out there on X and her social media pages, saying, "I am deeply saddened to hear the news about Charlie Kirk. My heart goes out to his wife, Erica, and their 2 children. He was a close family friend, and our thoughts and prayers are with them during this tragic time. Rest in peace, Charlie." Another live look right now as we continue to bring you this coverage in Utah as people come out to say their goodbyes to Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. And we will continue throughout the night to be bringing you more key information as it comes in. But we want to now bring you more coverage from our sister stations across the country. Right now, we'll be checking in with New York City, with Washington, D.C., and waiting for those more key updates from reporters that are not only on the ground, but also working with their sources as well. So we'll be bringing that to you in just moments on Live Now from Fox, everyone. We appreciate everyone continuing to be here with us during this very sad day as we report of a tragic death of a 31-year-old killed. But now let's go out to Fox 5 DC coverage. More from President Trump.
Violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible.
The latest from President Trump is the manhunt still underway at this hour for the gunman who shot and killed conservative activist Charlie Kirk. In the hours after the shooting, 2 different people were brought in for questioning, and both were released.
Kirk was shot at a crowded outdoor event today at Utah Valley State University. We want to get to our live team coverage tonight. Josh Rosenthal standing by with more on recent acts of political violence in the country.
We start with Sharon Rajay in the newsroom right now with the latest from authorities.
Yeah, guys, a day of shock and horror for so many today as the country mourns this loss. The search is still on tonight for the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk in what appears to be an assassination. There's been some confusion in the hours since the shooting, whether or not a suspect was in custody. Police did briefly detain a man moments after the shooting who was quickly released. And then after FBI Director Kash Patel announced a separate suspect was in custody, the FBI now confirming that person of interest has been released after an interrogation. Now, here's a look at where this all unfolded. A large crowd assembled in the center of Utah Valley University today for a Turning Point USA event when Kirk was shot and killed. Authorities say Kirk was killed by a single shot in an apparent targeted attack. At this time, authorities believe the shot was fired from a building about 200 yards away. Kirk was taking questions from an audience member about mass shootings and gun violence when he was struck. People in the crowd seen ducking, then running for their lives, a traumatic scene that many are sadly having to now cope with.
So I turned around, and like 10 to 20 seconds later, after I got done talking to Charlie, I saw that he was shot in the neck and that he was squirting blood everywhere.
If anyone in the sound of my voice celebrated even a little bit at the news of this shooting, I would beg you to look in the mirror. I don't care what his politics are. I care that he was an American.
Charlie Kirk became a highly influential conservative activist after starting Turning Point USA back in 2012. The group has a presence at thousands of universities and high schools and regularly holds campus events. Kirk is credited in part for helping President Trump win over young voters. And by the way, President Trump was the first to announce Kirk's death on social media. A live look right now at the White House tonight, where the president has ordered flags at half-staff in honor of Kirk's memory. Lawmakers across the aisle have condemned this act of political violence. Charlie Kirk was just 31 years old. He leaves behind a wife, 2 young children. Again, no shooter in custody at this time. We'll be sure to update you as we get more details. Jen.
And Kirk's death is the latest in a long line of recent incidents targeting political figures.
Fox 5's Josh Rosenthal is live in Bethesda tonight, where he spoke with an expert about what is happening throughout the country right now, and more importantly, what can be done about it. Josh?
First and foremost, guys, it's important to note that right now, as of this moment, we do not know specifically why Charlie Kirk was killed. One thing we do know, however, is that in recent years, we've seen a tremendous amount of political violence.
I think that we are probably living through the most politically violent time since the 1960s and 70s. It's a sick thing that we see these acts of violence one after the other.
That's Matt Dallek, who's a professor at GW and has written extensively about U.S. political violence. We talked to him today about all of these examples we've seen in recent years. Among them, the shootings of the Minnesota lawmakers and their spouses, the assassination attempts made against President Trump. There was the arson attack against Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, the congressional baseball shooting back in 2017. The list just goes on and on. Dalek believes that a number of factors have contributed to the uptick in these incidents. They include the heated political rhetoric we've all grown accustomed to. He said he thinks that social media acts as an accelerant for a lot of this. And he also mentioned that he believes our institutions and the political system have failed to contain extremism. Here's more of what he had to say about the rhetoric in particular.
My sense is that the rhetoric, the political rhetoric over the past decade has not just been harsh, but it has been hate-filled, dehumanizing. And the way that political leaders talk about the other side is not as worthy opponents, but as the enemy within.
So what can be done? Dalek essentially told us that in his mind, all of the above needs to change. Guys.
Thank you, Josh. In the district, a 17-year-old in the hospital tonight, this after being shot.
All right, so that is the coverage there from Fox 5 DC. Now what we want to do, take you back out to Utah. We were showing you just right outside of the hospital a little bit ago where people are coming to pay their respects there to Charlie and his family. I want to play out an interview that is going on right now with someone that came out to support Charlie.
It's called Utah's Patriots. Yeah.
Just 30-second, can you give me a summary of that real quick?
We really play a supportive role here in the state of Utah, helping communities, helping specific people run for office in the state. We help with disasters. We've helped kids with cancer and fundraisers. We are pretty politically driven as well. We do.
So, you know, unfortunately, I know why you're here and why everyone else is here, but what made you want to help organize this and be out here tonight? You spoke to a group earlier. You know, what is it that made you want to be out on the ground here tonight?
Sure, great question. You know, there's a lot of people that feel alone. There's a lot of people that feel scared. Not only now, they felt scared when assassination attempt was done on Donald Trump. They felt scared when Black Lives Matter was out. They feel scared when they're threatened because they have an American flag. So bringing a community together that isn't afraid to come out and be together, people enjoy that. That's what drives me, is when people come and go, hey, thanks so much for putting this together.
I think people will be, it sounds like you've been in the political scene of Utah for a while. I think when people hear this happened in Utah, they might be kind of shocked by that, but it sounds like you said that there is an active kind of political group here. It's not a homogenous, one-sided thing, right?
Hell no. You've got a couple of groups, PSL. They're a socialist group in Salt Lake. They're pretty strong. A group called 5051. They're a national group, and I hate giving them any audience because they're socialists and they want to tear down our country. But they're very rampant, and a lot of them are paid actors. I mean, one of the last events, they had 7,000 there. We know they came in buses and were trucked in, but they were here, right? And Utahns, the local homogenized people, don't even realize it's happening. You know?
Like you said, we had 2 assassination attempts on Trump. Were you concerned that something like this was sort of in the future, that this was a concern? That and you talked about the march in Utah earlier 100%. In Salt Lake.
Yeah, there was a march in Utah, and the left killed one of their own and wounded another, right? Appa was killed, shot in the head by the left. And, you know, there's still no one arrested from it. So am I worried about that? Sure. Of course. They don't know how to reason. They don't know how to have a discussion. It's all hate, rhetoric, and threats. That's really what it is.
I wonder if I can get your thoughts on Charlie Kirk was obviously someone that talked to younger conservatives. That was a big part of Turning Point, right? Was that it was for a new generation of conservatives. And it happened on a campus, in public, in the middle of the day. Are you concerned this might have a very chilling effect on people wanting to go out and participate in political events like this?
I think it'll have, unfortunately, more of an action to make people a little more beholden to do more of this action. You know, we sometimes see in society when there's a mass shooting, or take, for instance, the shootings from whatever group, trans or whatever it is, and they go out, well, all of a sudden, sometimes you see an uptick in this, right? And that's unfortunate. I sure hope our president and his administration cracks down on the criminal activity that's going on. I really do. I truly hope and pray that Utahns wake up, is really what I hope. You know, the left and the right is just more of the conservative side of people. You know, we've been very calm and complacent, and people like Charlie speak with words, and they're sharp, and they don't like it. But today, the left seems to do it with guns, which they want to ban anyways. Let's ban the guns, but let's assassinate people with guns. It's kind of an oxymoron. But yeah, I'm concerned, but I'm more concerned that people aren't going to wake up. But I sure hope and pray that this wakes up Utah, let alone America.
Almost finished. Did you ever have an opportunity to see him speak in person?
Yes, years ago, here in Utah.
A couple years ago, but can you tell me, I think I heard him speak in Arizona and Vegas, if my memory serves correctly. I've covered a few political rallies. But can you tell me, what's he like as a speaker? What's it like to listen to him?
You know, I think it's, for me, I think it's like Donald Trump. Donald Trump speaks for a lot of Americans that are afraid to speak, right? I think that's why he resonates with people. People sit on their couch watching football or having a beer or baseball and go, man, I was thinking of just that, or man, that's how I want our country to run. Well, Charlie speaks and people go, Charlie was able to regurgitate what we all think eloquently, right? And he was a great wordsmith. And some of us have a problem putting words together. Like, I'm not the best wordsmith. But Charlie then will speak and go, and it'll go in your head, oh my gosh, that's really what I wanted to say. And he's speaking what I'm feeling. That's what I get out of Charlie.
Gotcha. That was great. Thank you for talking with me. Sure. Is there anything you want to say before I let you go?
Wake up, Utah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
All right, that's Charlie Kirk supporter coming out tonight to just talk about him, why he's out there. And again, we are going to be providing you the coverage on Live Now from Fox throughout the evening. We are going to take a 2-minute break. When we come back, more reactions from across the country. Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us on the murder of Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. We want to bring you now more reaction in local markets. Let's go out to Fox 26 Houston as they cover this story.
Democrats are finding it hard to fathom the cold-blooded murder of Charlie Kirk. His killer not only rocked American politics, he forever changed the lives of 2 small kids.
This is a tragedy that's going to reverberate in American politics for some time.
I am just so saddened to hear that news. It makes me think, what is our world coming to? We can have differences of opinions, but we don't have to resort to violence.
My initial thoughts were just complete shock and disbelief.
I think anybody in this country sees this as just an unbelievable pattern of these killings for political reasons, and it's just terrible.
Murder of any kind is senseless, right? Of course, there's instances of self-defense, but murder is indefensible. And in this case, it's a political assassination, and it's an abomination that our country has reached to a point where these sorts of assaults on political figures has become almost commonplace.
At the end of the day, and I'm a gun owner, I believe in the Second Amendment, but I do think we need gun safety laws that keep guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them. And I think that's long overdue in this country.
I think this is a demonstration of where the political climate is, which is it has reached such a heated level that it's leading people to try to assassinate those political leaders, people that they disagree with.
When you have folks that step outside the line and use violence, it's such an attack on America.
This is going to be something that everybody in America needs to step back and say, we've had enough of rage, because that's what this is, it's rage.
Our hearts and prayers just go out to his family. Politics aside, Charlie Kirk was a young father and husband. He has a wife who lost her husband and two small young children that now have to grow up without their father.
We've got more reaction on our website from elected leaders across the state. Reporting from Spring Valley Village, Randy Wallace, Fox 26 News.
All right, Randy, thanks for those updates. I want to continue on with more coverage. Let's go out to Fox 35 in Orlando for the latest with Charlie Kirk's legacy.
It was just a few months ago, Charlie Kirk was in Gainesville on the campus of the University of Florida. College visits were his brand as he led Turning Point USA. It's the conservative nonprofit Kirk co-founded more than a decade ago. As Turning Point's UF chapter president, Peter Iosa helped organize Kirk's February visit.
To host him on my campus was just so surreal. And actually, to show you what it meant, I've had this picture on my wall ever since.
Pointing to Kirk's love of faith and family, Iosa calls Kirk one of his heroes.
I just think there's so much to remember about him. He's left behind a model that I think every young man in this country should look up to.
Lake County Commissioner Anthony Sabatini shared this picture of him on stage with Kirk at an event. He says Kirk was someone he knew quite well.
Hard to imagine the world without him. He was a major figure in American life from the day I entered politics 10 years ago through today, and I think he'll continue to be for much longer.
The Florida Young Republicans group says his work single-handedly motivated millions of Americans to engage with their government. Losing Charlie Kirk is devastating. The conservative movement and our country have lost a giant. Kirk's Turning Point USA says, may he be received into the merciful arms of our loving Savior, who suffered and died for Charlie. Governor DeSantis says Charlie was a warrior for liberty, and his murder is a tragedy for our nation.
It was not just an attack on Charlie personally, but really an attack on the idea that we resolve these things through reasoned debate and elections.
That was Governor Ron DeSantis there speaking about Charlie Kirk as well. All right, we want to continue on now. Let's go right outside of Turning Point's world headquarters in Phoenix. Fox 10 Phoenix's Kenzie Beach with the latest.
New information from FBI Director Kash Patel. The second suspect that was taken into custody has also been released. They are still searching for the person responsible for the shooting death of CEO and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk. The husband and father of two young children, spending a lot of time in Arizona, his family having a home here, and he spent plenty of time in the Valley prior to the 2024 presidential election. Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA USA, known for being on high school and college campuses. And that's exactly what he was doing when his life was taken. In this video here, you can see Charlie Kirk's body being carried and rushed away from Utah Valley University's campus into a private car. Kirk taken to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead. Utah Valley University has confirmed the shooter was on the roof of a nearby campus building 200 feet away from the amphitheater where the Turning Point event was being held. The late Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist, frequently spoke on colleges' campuses, allowing open dialogue and debate on controversial topics. Before this event, a petition with close to 1,000 signatures circulated campus asking university administrators to bar Kirk, but instead the university's response cited First Amendment rights, welcoming him. The original suspect was detained and quickly released. Same with the second suspect. The amphitheater where the debate was held was packed with not only college students, but also families at the time of the shooting. Our Fox affiliate spoke with witnesses who evacuated the campus.
Just one shot straight into Charlie Kirk, and that was it.
He was talking about guns right when he was shot.
And then he fell over and slumped down, and everybody got down and was screaming, and then we all ran. And everyone's just scared. It's traumatizing.
Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA focused on young voters. Arizona State University and Grand Canyon University both have Turning Point chapters on campus. In Phoenix, Kenzie Beach, Fox 10 News.
All right, Kenzie, thanks so much for that. And we'll continue to bring you the very latest here on Live Now from Fox. I do want to now show you some of the coverage of Fox 5 New York, their extended coverage on Charlie Kirk's death.
Possible suspect, the FBI director first announcing they had someone in custody, then later backtracking on that statement. As of right now, there is no word on a gunman.
And we have live team coverage from you. A former Homeland Security advisor is standing by with his reaction to this tragedy on a college campus. Sharon Crowley with a deep dive into Charlie Kirk's life and massive influence. But first, Richard G. Kovis is leading us off with the FBI investigation and manhunt for the killer tonight. Richard?
A lot going on. Natasha and Steve, authorities now saying they are seeking a new person of interest in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Kirk, a young, influential, conservative activist and close ally of the president. More than 8 hours after he was shot dead, no one tonight is in custody. The FBI previously saying an earlier person of interest was taken into custody but released after interrogation. All of this unfolding just after lunchtime in Utah, with video tonight capturing the chaos at Utah Valley University in the moments following that deadly shooting. This all seconds after that single gunshot was fired, the bullet hitting Charlie Kirk's neck, with investigators saying tonight that they believe this was a targeted attack. Utah's governor calling it a flat-out political assassination. Charlie Kirk was on the first stop of a Turning Point USA campus tour today. Turning Point is a conservative organization co-founded by Kirk when he was just 18. The organization, along with Kirk, was instrumental in getting young Republicans to the polls on Election Day and is credited in part with helping get President Trump back to the White House. Tonight, the president reacting in an address to the nation just moments ago on Truth Social to Kirk's killing.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world.
The president also calling it a dark day for America and vowing to find those responsible for Charlie Kirk's death and hold them accountable. And former presidents from both sides of the political aisle reacting tonight. President Biden posting on X, "There is no place in our country for this kind of violence. It must end now. Jill and I are praying for Charlie Kirk's family and loved ones." This from former President Barack Obama. We don't yet know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this kind of despicable violence has
has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife, Erica, and their 2 young children. And finally, former President George W. Bush releasing this statement. Today, a young man was murdered in cold blood while expressing his political views. It happened on a college campus where the open exchange of opposing ideas should be sacrosanct. Violence and vitriol must be purged from the public square. Members of other political parties are not our enemies. They are our fellow citizens.
I didn't expect the farmer's dog to change the way I feel about fresh food.
My golden retriever is 6 years old, but the way she used to act, you would think that she was 9 or 10. Switched her to farmer's dog and her energy levels up because I know she's getting the nutrients she needs. Farmer's dog is human grade food. Beef, chicken, turkey, vegetable, all that. And it's crafted by board certified nutritionalists.
Starting as low as $2 a day.
I always thought it was going to be so expensive, but it really isn't too bad. They've delivered over 1 billion meals since they started. That's billion with the beef.
Jolene and I recommend Farmer's Dog. I promise you won't regret it.
His generation. The founder of the nonprofit Turning Point USA was gunned down while doing his life's work, engaging young students in political debate. Tonight, college students holding a candlelight vigil at the University of Alabama. The campus in Utah, where this assassination happened, has been closed down for now. Turning Point USA's purpose is to share conservative values among young people. It has hundreds of chapters on college campuses around the country. Charlie Kirk traveled to many universities, motivating young conservatives to embrace their values and get involved in politics, and challenging others who disagreed with him. Tonight, students gathering to remember Charlie and what he stood for.
Focus on the political side of everything. Let's just focus on what Charlie's message was of making our country a better place, and that starts with, first of all, his connection with y'all, and the reason all of y'all out here tonight is because he set forward a mission for himself and for Turning Point that was one of making America better, helping people talk to each other, helping people learn from each other, having a discourse with each other, and actually caring deeply about your country. And Charlie was an amazing, shining example of that up until he went to go be with the Lord today.
While Kirk rose to become a potent political power, he developed his conservative leanings at just 18 years old. He spent years traveling the country, engaging with students, many times on liberal college campuses with students who didn't agree with him politically. He grew his following to the millions using new media, podcasting, and posting. His influence so great, he had powerful friends, including the President of the United States, who announced Charlie Kirk's death on social media this afternoon. His influence in 2024, its campaign cannot be overstated. He helped President Trump get elected by helping young Republicans get to the polls. And tonight, President Trump describing Kirk as a patriot, a man of deep faith, the best of America, who an assassin tried to silence. Steve.
Well, all right, thanks, Sharon. And joining us now is security and terrorism expert Michael Balboni. He's a former New York State Senator and former Homeland Security Advisor for New York. Sir, thank you for being with us tonight. First off, let's just get your immediate reaction to this tragic act of violence.
Tomorrow's 9/11. New York, more than any other place in the world, suffered the greatest tragedy that we could imagine. We were united after that. I'm hoping that this tragedy also unites us and stops with the partisan vitriol that has plagued our country in recent months and years.
Time is of the essence in catching who's behind this heinous crime. What do investigators need to do to pin down this gunman? It's been 8 hours.
So the longer this takes, that they don't have somebody in custody, or at least someone who's really a person of interest, the more it speaks to the organization and the capabilities of this assassin. Take a step back. Guy gets into, if it is a man, we don't yet know. Person takes a high-powered weapon, shoots one shot, kills his target from, we estimates range, but around 200 meters, and then escapes, and nobody sees him. So in any investigation, you let the facts take you where they take you. You don't make any presumptions. But the longer this takes to find somebody, you raise a question as to whether or not this individual was a professional, had training, and whether or not this is something that this individual had support to do what the individual did.
I do want to ask you, what do you make of the law enforcement agencies and that they had a person of interest, they said they had someone in custody, then they didn't, then they've released it? I mean, what's your take on what's going on behind the scenes?
So as you've seen from the video, it's an incredibly chaotic scene on a college campus, hundreds and hundreds of people there. Right immediately afterwards, it's something that it's very hard to stop, freeze everybody in place and say, okay, that's the individual. And so law enforcement, they try their best, but it's not something, it's not like on TV. It doesn't happen that way. Having said that, it is, to me, very important that that a rifle sound, sound of a report was heard, and yet nobody was able to identify an individual, which most likely means that the individual was shooting from concealment and maybe had some way to suppress or to hide the flash of the gun. And again, indicating that this is a sophisticated individual, one shot hitting the target from 200 meters away and then escaping without anybody seeing them. Those are the hallmarks of a professional.
Yeah, this event, of course, was outside, lots of buildings nearby, plenty of people in the audience, somewhat similar to that Trump rally we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania. We actually know that Charlie did have his own private security that traveled with him as well. This was the start of an on-campus tour for him. I mean, was there anything that could have been done? I mean, and are we prepared for what we're about to see coming forward as far as trying to secure events like this that happen on college campuses all the time, that are just supposed to be a free exchange of ideas?
So typically what happens when you have a protectee, first of all, you have to know that that individual is under threat. That comes from a variety of different sources, whether it's a social media scan, whether it's about the communications that have been given to that protectee. But this is a private citizen. Yes, he was seen as controversial and in many sectors, but he had spoken around the country many times before, and nothing like this. And yet now he comes in, and the hardest thing to do is try to anticipate where the threats come from and what threats there are. So I would argue that in an open air setting like this, a rifle attack is probably the most difficult thing to stop. As opposed to trying to place an explosive device or trying to get close with a handgun or a knife. But nonetheless, it is something that we're going to have to rethink whether or not there's you want to have the crowd be able to see the individual, but yet perhaps there's a way that you can shield the individual from a line of sight, because that's what this is all about. This is about preventing an adversary from having a line of sight to the target. And the way they do that typically is that they draw a ring around, a 360-degree ring. They say this is the area. It's 200 meters. You can't have any weapons within that area. And, of course, that's very difficult to do. That's the other thing we have to calibrate our expectations. This was not the security detail of the Secret Service for the President of the United States. And even in that case, President Trump was almost assassinated. Just nearly missed. So when I used to oversee the New York State Police and their protective detail of the governor, it was always a huge concern that if you had someone who was dedicated and someone who was professional, protecting the person that you had some type of visibility is very, very, very difficult.
That's a really sad day. We got to leave the conversation there. Michael Balboni, thank you so much for your expertise.
Thank you.
And the candidates for New York City mayor are weighing in on the death of Charlie Kirk. All four saying that this act of political violence has no place in our country.
All right, Mayor Adams interviewed with Kirk just last month and says he was a passionate young man. Mayoral frontrunner Zoran Mamdani saying he's horrified by the shooting death of Charlie Kirk.
Andrew Cuomo says the country must stop celebrating division and start healing. Republican Curtis Sliwa calling for prayers for the wife and two young children Kirk now leaves behind. And stay with Fox 5 for the latest on this breaking story. Also download the Fox local app.
Just a little bit of Fox 5 DC coverage continuing to bring us some of the latest updates with the reporters that are covering this as well. We'll check back in also with Fox 5 DC in a moment as well. But I do want to read out to you the latest statement that we just received from the FBI as well as the Utah DPS that are continuing to investigate this shooting. So this is what we know right now, according to the release here. It says this shooting is still an active investigation. The Utah Department of Public Safety, DPS, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, are co-leading this incident in unison with the Utah County Attorney's Office, the Utah County Sheriff's Office, and the local police departments. We initially took in George Zinn as a suspect. He was later released and charged with obstruction by UVU police. A second suspect, Zachariah Qureshi, was taken into custody and released after interrogation with law enforcement. There are no current ties to the shooting with either of these individuals. This is an ongoing investigation, and manhunt for the shooter continues. The FBI has created a digital media tip line for information regarding this shooting at fbi.gov/Utah Valley shooting. We ask the public to please provide any information they may have to this tip line. DPS's State Crime Lab, along with all law enforcement involved, are working multiple active crime scenes. These were identified based on where the victim was shot, as well as the locations where the suspect and victim traveled. The shooting is believed to be a targeted attack. The shooter is believed to have fired from the roof of a building down to the location of the public event in the student courtyard. Any additional clarifications cannot be provided to protect the integrity of our investigation. To secure the event, UVU PD had 6 officers working this event. These security measures were in addition to Charlie Kirk's security detail, who travels with him. Approximately 3,000 people showed up for this tragic moment for Utah and the country. It goes on to say the UVU campus will be closed for the rest of the week. If students, faculty, or staff need additional information about the campus, please visit uvu.info. So again, we will be covering this here for you on Live Now from Fox, waiting for more key information from the police. All right, everyone, we'll take another 2-minute break. We will be back with much more on Live Now from Fox this evening. And we're back here for you on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page, as we continue to follow the tragic events out in Utah. Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31, and no suspect in custody. The manhunt continues at this hour. I want to now go out to Fox 5 DC, more of their coverage on Charlie Kirk.
Kirk He was gunned down at a crowded outdoor event today in Utah. Joining me now live here on Fox 5, former Secret Service agent Jeff James, who is live with us tonight. And Jeff, every time we bring you on, it's in the aftermath of something high profile like this. And I know it's an easy question to ask and it's a tough one to answer, but what does it take to stop this sort of political violence?
Well, I wish I had the answer. I would tell you that anyone I was advising on security who is in a high-profile position, I would stop having outdoor events. I can tell you that in my 22 years in the Secret Service, outdoor events were the hardest thing I did. They are monsters. Lines of sight go on forever. You have to worry about everything from somebody lobbing mortars in from thousands of yards away to people hiding in tree lines to drones, and it's a lot of extra work and a lot of extra risk that you're taking if you can be indoors.
And certainly that's something that we spoke about in the aftermath of the first assassination attempt on President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania. It came down to that, doing these big outdoor events. The president was adamant he would keep doing events, and they put the big bulletproof glass up in front, and thankfully we have not seen anything to that attempt on the president's life. But here's Charlie Kirk, who, yes, he is a public figure, but he also is not in public office. He had a large private security contingent surrounding him, and clearly you have to plan for all possibilities. But in a case like this, we were looking at some of the sight lines here, Jeff. I mean, that was a pretty wide distance, a pretty far distance away this bullet came from.
Well, not only that, you know, but he placed himself kind of in a bad position with the way that was set up, being down in a bowl with all that high ground around him. You know, you just, anywhere you looked from his vantage point, there was a risk. You know, the last report I heard was that the shot they're estimating came from 200 feet away, which, depending what kind of weapon the bad guy had, isn't that difficult of a shot. So again, I certainly don't want to sound like I'm blaming the victim, but you know, putting himself in that position was a decision that maybe shouldn't have been made. I know that.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say, you know, the difference in what Charlie Kirk does is different from a political rally. Is that a political rally, everybody's usually there to support the person that they're seeing. Mm-hmm. Charlie Kirk invited a pretty divided audience, and sadly, somebody chose violence.
You've spent some time in the law enforcement realm on college campuses as well at Robert Morris University, back outside of Pittsburgh, and you know these are places where you do have large public events coming on to campus from time to time. But when you look at these law enforcement units, these police departments, clearly when you have these big events, it requires a fortified group of law enforcement professionals to join in too.
Yeah, the best thing these universities can do, you know, typically, unless it's a large university, you know, your suburban universities aren't going to have a very robust police force. So they're going to have to count on their law enforcement partners to come in and help them supplement the manpower that they're going to need for these big events, especially these political events that can be so divisive.
Yeah, and no matter where it is, I mean, whether it's in our shared native Western Pennsylvania or in a place like Utah, things like this happen, and the question afterwards is always, how could that happen here? And that question, unfortunately, we do not know, and we don't seem like we'll know for some time. Jeff James, appreciate.
Build a website you love with Wix, where your words create your brand, your opportunity, your breakthrough. Feeling a vibe? Run with it. From can't look away to gotta have it. Make every detail yours. Bring out what's hot. Remove what's not. Crystallize it. Instantly set a tone that speaks in your voice to your audience. Keep moving. Your site grows with you. Add solutions that meet you where you are and take you where you want to go. Smooth to make, easy to love.
We're back here for you this evening on Live Now from Fox on the tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31, and a manhunt continues for a suspect, where police just gave an update via a news release saying that they have no one in custody and continue to be back at square one right now. A live look right now at a memorial right outside of the regional hospital where they did take Charlie Kirk. And again, many coming out to pay their respects and think of him and his family during this very, very difficult time. We want to show you again some lawmakers that talked just a little bit after the shooting and got the reaction after the news of Charlie Kirk passing.
Well, the killing of Charlie Kirk, I mean, it was obviously shocking, the way that happened. And as I said earlier, the absurdity that this is a guy that you can disagree with him. I obviously agreed with him on most things. This is a guy that was trying to open up dialogue and engage in civil discourse across college campuses, and it was part of his appeal, even those that disagreed with him, right? Just engaging in an open debate. And it was extremely popular. And, you know, this is going to be one of those things that, you know, changes some things. I haven't quite yet figured out how or what, but you know, it's, you know, this one hits. You know, I'm just thinking about most recent conversations with Charlie about different issues, different things. And my son, I was texting with him, and he was a big fan. And he was asking about it, and I told him, I said, stay off of me. He's not on social media, he can't ask it, but if somebody sends him a video or something, I said, just don't click on all that stuff. And, you know, he asked what its status was. I told him he had passed away, and he goes, oh man, is that public news? I said, it's official. He's gone, and I'm sorry. And he said, you know, I'd like to have met him, and then sent a Bible verse about staying the course. And I was really proud of him. But look, this is gonna, you know, this is going to change things. I just kind of got to figure out exactly how. But we're going to stay the course and keep doing what we believe. But a country that's turning its back on our collective faith as a nation, this is why we're seeing a breakdown in our ability to band together. We got to do something about that.
How do you turn down the rhetoric, turn down the threat of political violence?
Well, I mean, we should be able to speak freely and speak with passion and regard about what we believe without it coming to that. That's the thing. But even just the stuff that wasn't political violence here directed at Charlie, but what Charlie was even talking about as recently as yesterday or probably today, I haven't heard what he said today at Utah or anywhere else, but you know, about what happened to that young Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte. It's insanity, right? With the sickness of people on the street, whether it's, you know, people that are violent like that man in North Carolina who was, you know, should have been in jail, or whether it's just people that are sick from their political hatred. You got to be able to get that our founding fathers. I mean, obviously we went through a civil war. Our founding fathers were often at each other's throats. Adams and Jefferson famously, you know, hating each other and then kind of coming to respect each other. Like you either are bound together by something or you're not. And I think we should be bound together by the much greater purpose for this nation. And, you know, that's what I'm going to stand with, and that's how I'm going to move forward with all this. We're here for something bigger and greater than all of ourselves. Charlie lived it. Tweeted out 3 days ago about his faith in his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, so I know where he is. And just God bless his wife and his 2 young children.
What does it say that on the floor? I mean, you guys couldn't even get through kind of the prayer without it being a shouting match between folks on there.
Look, there was people on the floor that were very close to Charlie. I think some of that was coming out. I don't know why we couldn't have had a spoken prayer, but, you know, speaker was trying to move things along, get us through the votes. We had a moment of silence. I'm quite certain we'll have some deeper conversations and public displays of our appreciation for Charlie going forward. And the president's obviously taken some steps. But look, it is what it is. You know, we'll move forward through it. Thanks, guys.
What is his legacy being for the conservative movement?
Look, Charlie, I have to say past tense right now. It's just Charlie was a incredible deep thinker, grounded in philosophy. I remember a couple months ago he was over at some Oxford debates or whatever it was. just like true deep thinking, classical education type engagement on the things that we believe, and that's really important. It's important to have thoughtful discourse that makes you think, that forces you to go through logic and reasoning and our history, and be rooted in history, and not let you get away with just sound bites and turn and walk. Charlie was not that. Charlie was the opposite of that. Again, you can disagree with him, but he was deeply rooted in philosophy and principle and faith and knowledge and history, and we need more of that, not less. We weakened the country today with the loss of Charlie, because that kind of discourse is necessary. It's like William F. Buckley having deep thoughts and conversations with firing line and other stuff. We need that. We don't need soundbite Twitter wars. We need deep philosophical engagement to carry our country forward. Charlie represented that, and I hope more will continue to do that going forward. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Chip Roy speaking earlier today on Capitol Hill. All right, new this moment. So we do have a new statement from the FBI, posting this on X just moments ago, saying the FBI is working alongside our local and state law enforcement partners in Utah to fully investigate and seek justice in the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. FBI statement says, as soon as we heard about the shooting, special agents and personnel from the Salt Lake City field office responded immediately. We have full resources devoted to this investigation, including tactical, operational, investigative, and intelligence. To be clear, the FBI will fully support and co-lead this investigation alongside our partners. All right, we are going to take another 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox as we continue to bring you the coverage of Charlie Kirk's murder. We're back here for you worldwide tonight on Live Now from Fox, continuing to talk about the tragic murder, assassination of Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. Our thoughts continue to go out to his family and friends during this very, very difficult time. All right, we do want to show you now the reaction from President Trump, put out this statement just a little bit ago via his Truth Social.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth. Charlie was also a man of deep, deep faith, and we take comfort in the knowledge that he is now at peace with God in heaven. Our prayers are with his wife, Erica, the two young, beloved children, and his entire family, who he loved more than anything in the world. We ask God to watch over them in this terrible hour of heartache and pain. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace. It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Tonight, I ask all Americans to commit themselves to the American values for which Charlie Kirk lived and died, the values of free speech, citizenship, the rule of law, and the patriotic devotion and love of God. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come. Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory, may God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Statement from President Trump earlier tonight. Live look right now as a memorial continues to grow out in Utah for Charlie Kirk. Now I want to show you the interview that I had with Matt Schlapp of CPAC just a little bit ago. We continue to bring you some of the people that knew Charlie Kirk, worked with him, and continue to share his thoughts and memories with everyone. I do want to bring in our next guest to help bring in some more memories of Charlie. This is Matt Schlapp, CPAC chairman. Thanks so much, Matt, and I'm sorry that we're meeting under these circumstances. He was a friend of yours, and I'm very sorry of this news.
Yeah, it's devastating, positively tragic. You feel it on a personal level. Everybody knows he was a young man with a brand new family, hadn't been married that long. Beautiful photos and, great example. And then you have this larger context, which is what the hell is going on in our country? What's wrong with our society? Why have we started to hate so much politically? I think, obviously, I don't like what I see coming from the hard left. I don't like this idea that you can't be friends with people who you disagree with politically. I just think as soon as that got entered into the American political context, everything became toxic. You have people who have canceled family reunions because of politics. That never used to happen in America. You have people who, in our neighborhood, they do the nastiest things because they don't like my wife's or my politics. This has to end. We have to learn about the golden rule, rediscover it, being a good neighbor. And if we see people in our society who are inappropriate with violence, maybe we need to call the authorities a lot sooner. We just seem to have a lot of very mentally deranged and sick people who are letting politics do them things that is changing the course of history in a very negative way.
Matt, it used to be where if you didn't like someone's message, you just didn't listen to them or you ignored it. Now, when you don't like someone's message, it seems like you got to find out where they are and then want to shoot them from over 200 yards away.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of this violence. If you call someone Hitler or Nazi or someone who hates trans kids or hates Muslim kids, or, this war on women was a rhetoric that Obama used. When you use this incendiary language, you could be encouraging people who are not balanced to do something terrible. And I just think it's a good moment for everybody to take a few steps away from the brink. And I also think we better figure out as a society if we share things in common anymore. And one of those things could be the idea that America was a country that was established with a very wide and broad First Amendment that allowed people to express themselves politically. And I think we need to encourage that. We need to encourage people who disagree with each other to listen to each other. The biggest problem we have right now is we have a news media that shows sides, that shows the left-hand side, the hard left side, and by and large with mainstream media. And, that left people with no place to go to get the truth. And then you have people that are wandering to figure out what's going on. And I would like it if we had some continuity that brought people together. Sports used to do that. They had to even ruin sports with politics, which they're doing less of now, thank God. But these are the things we need to see changes on.
Yeah, especially when you look back at 2020 to 2022 for sports, it was almost unwatchable because it went so politic driven. Matt, what about your events? Are you worried about the security around your events, the big events that you host? And tell us a little bit about that.
It's always in the back of my head every time we have an event, especially at the big ones. We spend a lot of money on security, so people shouldn't be worried. But with all of these newly sworn in officials, we have a lot of magnetometers at our events. So I think we're taking all the steps we need to. That being said, of course you worry about it. We just live in a society where one person can do tremendous damage, and they seem to be feeding off each other. We had the shooting at the Catholic Church. That was, not very long ago. And we had this terrible stabbing in the metro from a guy who had 14 priors and was violent. We're just seeing with rapidity terrible acts of senseless violence. We're a society that's growing accustomed to that. And that's a very dangerous and unacceptable thing. And I think if there's something I'd like to do, we fought very hard on a lot of things that we care about at CPAC, and we've made a lot of Republicans upset at us at times because we've been very strident, and I don't take any of that back. But I would like to, rekindle this idea that somebody who disagrees with me shouldn't feel like I wouldn't be kind to them or that I wouldn't want to talk to them. And Charlie did a good job of making sure people understood that. And I'm going to double down on trying that again. Sometimes you have to put your hand back out even when it's been slapped, or turn the other cheek, as our Savior, our Savior, told us in the good book. These are the types of things we just have to rekindle in our society, else it's going to be too late.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we're putting people in so many just boxes. We're saying, okay, you're a Democrat or you're just a Republican, but we're forgetting that at the end of the day, these are just human beings too. They have a family. They want to go home at the end of the day, just like everyone else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And really, you can have disagreement on public policy, but it doesn't mean you hate the person, right? So like somebody could say, look, I think DEI and affirmative action is doing more harm than good. It doesn't make you a racist. You can disagree with some policies coming out of the state of Israel on things, and that doesn't make you anti-Semitic. You can believe that terrorism too often is being sponsored by governments controlled by Muslims, right? That doesn't make you Islamophobic. Like, you know, all of these terms that these people just keep throwing out, and they're very broad and inexact, and all that needs to end as well. You can have political opinions that are unique, no matter what your religion, no matter what your color, no matter what your gender, and I think we just have to listen to what people are saying. And you know, people say things that are over the line, of course, and I think that's inappropriate, especially if it's you know, inciting violence. But beyond that, I think it's a pretty wide swath that you should be able to consider when you're speaking politically. And you know, NPR and PBS telling people like me we can't appear anymore because we're climate deniers, or we're election deniers, or you know, we're science deniers. This idiocy has to stop.
And lastly, Matt, what was Charlie like, you know, when the cameras weren't on, when the microphone wasn't on? What was he just like as a person passing by, and what's he like?
Well, you know, he came to CPAC when he was quite young. It was probably at least 10 years ago, and he had a bunch of younger kids with him. They had red T-shirts on, and they were this group called Turning Point. And I didn't really know what they were, but they were impressive because they were nice, mannerly kids. And Charlie said, I'd like to get these kids up on your stage. And we, of course, said yes, and we thought it was awesome. And, you know, he had an outstanding career and really grew the organization. It's a very impressive organization. It's on college campuses all over the place. They have great conferences. And matter of fact, they asked me to speak at one of their conferences, and one of the young people, maybe they didn't say it's to be too nice, but it's okay. They said, you know, Turning Point's getting to be bigger than CPAC. And I was like, well, if Turning Point gets bigger than CPAC, or CPAC gets bigger than Turning Point, we might just win and take this country back on the principles we care about. So like, you know, it was a good thing to have another group that was growing and getting big and making a big impact. We need more, not less. We need more Charlie Kirks, not fewer. And I think Charlie, you know, who was really fun to be around, a great guy. He was like all the great ones. He wasn't that much different behind the camera as he was in front of the camera, and he was very authentic. And I think if you care about Charlie Kirk and his legacy, get in this fight and keep going, keep pushing, and do it in a way where at the end of it all, you can still shake hands and find some commonality.
Yeah, and that was a match slap from earlier tonight. You are watching live now from Fox. Live look at the White House. We'll take a 2-minute break and be back with more. We are back here for you on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us, continuing to bring you the breaking news coverage of Charlie Kirk, murdered in Utah at his event. The Utah governor calling it a political assassination. We've heard already from President Trump. We'll play that out for you a little bit later, just in case if you're just joining us here on Live Now from Fox. But really, the big news since this shooting, though, is that the suspect still on the loose. An active manhunt is going on right now in Utah. Before, they did have a person detained. They were questioning that person, but then we hear from FBI Director Kash Patel saying the subject in custody has been released after an interrogation by law enforcement. Our investigation continues, and we will continue to release information in interest of transparency. So I want to obviously continue to talk about this. Let's bring in our next guest to help break down what the investigation might look like right now in this hour. Scott Duffy, former FBI agent, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And yeah, this is a story now where we think, okay, maybe we have someone detained, they're going to be the suspect, and now it looks like it's back to square one.
Yeah, good evening, Micah. Thanks for having me on. It is back to square one, and I tell you, it's somewhat of a roller coaster ride that I haven't seen, I would say, not only in my career, my post-career, with as much attention that is being put on people in custody, detained, questioned, and then released. And it's kind of leaving the public to believe, okay, it's all clear and safe to return. So I'm skeptical about anything that's released with regards to a person who's been detained. I don't like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still so fluid right now where, okay, so what happens or when a shooting happens with a large event like this taking place at this campus in Utah, they have an idea that this person was on a roof. I mean, what are they looking at as far as security and everything else when it comes to videotapes around?
Yeah, you and I no different than the rest of the world who are combing through all their social media videos, everything that's being put out with regards to the audience, this individual that I think we have all seen, this figure on a rooftop. So, and you can imagine that there's probably many more photos and videos that are out there that are helping police, helping the FBI and other law enforcement agencies to narrow down the search. So like anything else that we have discussed, unfortunately, with these tragedies, active shooters, mass shooters, attempt assassinations, as we have seen twice on President Trump's life, and then, of course, tonight, the unspeakable tragedy of what is being called an assassination and a political assassination with regards to the life of Charlie Kirk. So right now, there was a dragnet when this first took place, as it should be. And as the perimeter is growing because the individual is not in custody, and which each and every passing hour, that perimeter continues to expand, if there is even a perimeter as we speak, depending on what they have or have set up, roadblocks, etc. So now they're doing a deep dive, and if we do not see something within a couple hours, that this will turn into a full-fledged fugitive hunt.
Yeah. And Scott, I also want to get your take. Before an event like this happens, when it's outdoor, you have the open air, what is his security team as well as the local law enforcement doing around the perimeter to make sure that it's safe?
Yeah. So you have an individual like this who's a private individual. He is well known, well respected, and at the same time having the polar opposites of those that don't side with his viewpoint, right? So a personal security team, and then of course you have campus security. I've already seen the reports of the police chief there on campus talking about how many were provided. Ultimately, I think they have the intelligence. That is his internal security team and then shared with law enforcement wherever that Charlie Kirk was going in his past travels to say, hey, this is the intel we have. In other words, what's the level of the threats? Social media, right? There are those acceptable threats that people who just don't disagree with you and they wish you the worst. But you know through law enforcement analysis that it will never go beyond a word. And so I don't know what the internal intelligence was, if there was an escalation of perhaps these type of threats to where they could believe it would be actionable. So typically, if it's not at that level, it's simply just being aware and watching the video of Charlie Kirk being there, kind of getting a gauge of the security, both in uniform and not in uniform. It seemed like they were more concerned with somebody who's going to jump over a barrier and then kind of be a bodyguard. As you can see by, unfortunately, what we have seen, that everyone was taken off guard. There was there's very little reaction. And so that told me nobody was expecting anything. And so I imagine the intelligence of whatever threats were out there were probably pretty low.
Yeah, and do you find that a little interesting? You know, given everything that we know now, we look at Butler, where there was a man on a roof type setting, and now you look at this situation where, you know, it was a bold type of area where you had taller buildings in and around that area. I know hindsight is 20/20, but I mean, do you think it would be, before this guy gets out there, to put up a drone and just kind of look at the roofs to make sure no one's on them?
Yeah, it all comes down to the security protocols. So you have an individual that is a private individual, and of course he's out there in the public on many different fronts, not only the political front, but also philosophical, religious. I mean, he is in the forefront of many conservative ideals, but also with regards to him specifically going to college campuses and trying to drive the discussion. So it ultimately comes down to him and his security detail. What did he want, and what did his security want to do? And if they were on the same page with, let's keep it low key, and the intelligence is not really there to show there is an actionable threat, then yeah, this would be whatever has succeeded in the past will continue to succeed until our intelligence tells otherwise. This unfortunately wasn't a miss, where they could have then gone back and say, hey, this totally has to change. So it's unspeakable, it's tragic. But at the same time, as I've heard others talk with regards to, yes, individuals must continue to always feel free to speak their mind, to have free discourse. But in this day and age, we also have to look hard at security protocols and really step it up.
And Scott, I also want to get your take on it was jarring communication today with police, the FBI, and local officials there on the ground. We had a statement earlier from Kash Patel, the FBI director, saying that they had a subject that they were going to be questioning. And then at the news conference, just moments later, they say right off the top that they don't have a suspect in custody. And then during the questions from the media, they say, well, we do have a subject right now being questioned, and now we learned that person has since been let go. So, what do you give here with this jarring communication right now?
Yeah, Mike, there has to be a better. This is not good with regards to communication from any level. So you have law enforcement itself that's contradicting itself from a federal, state, or local agency. So I don't like that, and it ultimately erodes in the public trust to, when something is going to happen, people are going to, I'm not so sure because you cried wolf one too many times. It's not good for the public safety, because the public needs to know that law enforcement is doing their thing and that they're trying to secure the neighborhood wherever they may be in harm's way in that particular community if they fear this shooter is still somehow in the area. So it gives them a false hope, and then when they see that somebody is not in custody, they're back into that fear, and so it's not good for the community at large, and especially not good for the ultimate messaging from law enforcement that really needs to be coming from one source, and it must be tested before it goes out to the public. And so I would just say that at this point, we should be very careful in putting anything out there with regards to somebody being in custody.
And Scott, what do you make here of this suspect there that we, of course, we don't know too much about right now, still on the loose, but, you know, it would seem like in this situation that this person would probably want to go out in a blaze of glory and maybe either get caught right away or shoot themselves at the scene, maybe with a handgun. But for this person to shoot and kill Charlie and then just kind of escape without incident, it seems a little bit different.
Yeah, this is a little bit different, and I've heard whether it's professional, not professional, I can definitely say trained. You know, going back to the assassination, the murder of the U.S. healthcare CEO. Again, was this individual trained? Was it a professional? And then, of course, we see the outcome. Someone who was very strongly intent on killing not only the CEO that he targeted, but generally going out there to look for others in targeting the U.S. healthcare. So here you have an individual that really, I would say, is well trained. I don't know the exact yardage if that's been put out there, but I've heard anywhere from 50 to 200 yards. Either way, that's a considerable amount of time for just a novice. For someone who is mentally ill that all of a sudden decides to get a gun, maybe not having practice with the gun, then to get it onto a roof and to be able to fire one round, not a bunch of rounds, and to hit their target. So I do believe in the proficiency of this individual. There's no doubt in my mind if it's a targeted event as opposed to a random mass shooting where a person is going in to do the most harm in the shortest period of time. And ultimately, if they're not taken into custody by law enforcement, they meet their demise either by suicide or by law enforcement encounter. And they have no escape. It would seem to me this person stayed at a distance, had planned, had surveilled, knew exactly what was going on, knew the layout, and had an escape plan. And they were successful in that. So it's a combination of perhaps lack of law enforcement that was in and around the scene, because this was even though it was a well-tended event, it is a low-key event in the sense that did Charlie Kirk and his team decide, hey, we're not looking to build up a high security as you would have for a presidential or some other protectee. So there's no doubt in my mind this person is well trained, had thought a lot about it, planned, and is well trained with the weapon to be able to have pulled this off and to be able to escape.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Scott, thanks so much again for joining us on Live Now from Fox and giving us some great insights into the investigation, what will be happening, and hopefully soon suspect arrested. We are back here for you. All right, that was my interview earlier tonight with Scott. We appreciate that, as always, on Live Now. We are going to take a 2-minute break. We will be back with more on Live Now from Fox. back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us. Our breaking news coverage continues of the tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. We are continuing to bring you the very, very latest on this. We know that the suspect's still at large. The manhunt continues for that shooter. Once we get more information, we'll pass that along to you. In the meantime, I do want to bring in our next guest. He was a witness to this terrible shooting today in Utah. Please welcome everybody, Michael Mariano. Thanks so much for being here with us, Michael. And you saw this all happen. Just tell our viewers where you were in connection to Charlie and everything that you saw.
Yeah, as many of your viewers know, Charlie, when he visits college campuses, he has a table. He tables and asks students for them to prove him wrong or to debate or dialogue on a certain political or theological topic. And so I got to the event early, and I went to the line and I spoke with some of the members of the Turning Point chapter at UVU about my question that I wanted to ask him. And so they expedited me to the front of the line. And Charlie arrived on scene at about 12:02, a few minutes after noon, and I believe the shot was fired at 12:10. And I was probably 10th in line to ask a question. So, only 10 or 12 feet to his right. And he was shot in his left neck. And so I didn't see the grotesque details because I was on the other side, but it was, I'm still in shock, but, the first second was, someone's playing, a crass joke to try and ruin the event and ruin the turnout. And then, after a few seconds, it was like, this is real. I've always seen this and wondered if I'd ever be a part of something like this. And now I'm in the midst of a political assassination and a hate crime.
Yeah, I mean, this is just terrible, just how it all unfolded, and to think you were just getting so close to giving your question to Charlie there. Now, when it happened, when the shooting happened, was it very loud? Did everybody know, okay, something is going on here? And when did the people started to run?
I mean, I think it's all a blur momentarily. Some people were under the impression that it wasn't loud enough to be a gun. I think some people thought it was a firecracker. People started to run pretty immediately. I think the people I was with prioritized getting down on the ground instead of running, just because it was in a bowl formation, and we were at the bottom of the bowl. And so if the shooter was up high, anyone that was running, we were afraid was just going to get mowed down. So it was probably 20 or 30 seconds of anticipating a second shot. Assuming that it was a mass shooter. And then once I think people realized that it was a more targeted attack, we helped people find their families and get the heck out of there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, once that happens, you just got to start running and hoping for the very best. And that moment that just happens and there's mass confusion. And then when did you realize, okay, this is really bad? And then when did you get the details that unfortunately he passed away?
It probably took about 3 hours to get the news that he had passed away. Initially, I didn't even know if he had been hit. I saw him bounce. I saw him fall down in his chair, but that was inconclusive. Some people were saying he was hit. Some people were saying he wasn't hit. And there were just mixed news flying around everywhere. We heard that he had been hit maybe 30 minutes after. It was confirmed through video evidence and whatnot. And then I think we were waiting on standby. And as a member of the community down here in Utah, you're hearing different things from friends and family who are saying, my uncle works in the hospital. This is what I've been hearing. My father-in-law is the surgeon in there right now. This is what I've heard. So mixed reviews until I think it was President Trump that kind of sent out the memo that unfortunately Mr. Kirk had passed away.
It's terrible, terrible. I want to show our viewers right now. We'll get to this in just moments. There's a vigil going on right now in Orem, Utah. We'll give that to you as soon as we wrap up here. But I want to continue with you, Michael, just because you were so close to this. I mean, just 10 people away from asking your question. And I mean, given everything that we see now in this landscape of political divisiveness, I mean, it doesn't seem like you could have an opinion anymore, because if someone doesn't like your opinion, they're going to try to find where you're at and want to kill you if you're big enough, if you're an influencer, it seems.
Yeah, certainly. This is a political assassination and a political hate crime, but in the same sense, it's not political at all. We here in Utah, we here in America are all grieving. We're all grieving. So now is the time to think about what we say and how we say it. Because if we don't take a moment to stop and suspend our judgment, instead of focus on unity, we're going to keep going in this conflict of irrational responding when we're projecting. We're projecting our disbelief and our hurt and our anger, and even maybe some people's happiness, which is disgusting to say. But we need to take a minute and we need to suspend judgment, and we need to focus on the shared humanity in this. And so our response, and my response, is to take a moment to process my emotions instead of responding out of shock or anger. And yet, we need to understand everyone suffered a loss here, no matter what side you're on. This isn't just political. This is humane. And it is scary that we're killed for our beliefs, right? Our inalienable right, our endowed gift from God in the Constitution is the right to life. And there's just no word. There's no words that can describe this. There's no argument. There's no politics. The only way this can be solved is in shared compassion and in presence. And I can't offer my words. I can't offer my argument. I can't even offer my politics. I can only offer you and my loved ones around me here in Utah. I can only offer my presence, and I can sit and I can be with you, and I can listen to your sorrows, and I can cry with you. And the way I see it, that's the only way out of this sorrow and hurt.
So true. And lastly, Michael, I want to get your thoughts because, a couple of hours ago, we heard an update saying that they had somebody detained that could be possibly the shooter. They said they were questioning him, so the manhunt was over. And now, just a little bit ago, within the last hour, we learned that the manhunt is back on. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Where this little back and forth going on with police as well as trying to locate this coward?
Yeah, I mean, the governor has assured people that we're going to get this guy. It's a tense situation right now with a manhunt and a shooter and a murderer, a criminal on the loose. But I have trust in the authorities, and I hope this person doesn't try anything else. But I don't know. It's anxious with all the uncertainty, but in situations, terrible crimes like this in the past, we have equally as little information as we do in this point. And you just have to have faith that, like the other stories, FBI and the government knows more than they're letting on, and they have a trace on this guy, and we're going to get him, and we're going to prosecute him to the highest extent of the law.
Yeah, so well said. Michael, thanks so much for speaking with us. I'm glad that you're okay, but I'm sorry for you that you had to witness such a tragedy today. But take care, and thanks again for speaking with us.
Thanks, Mike.
Back here for you on Live Now from Fox. Thanks again for joining us. We continue to bring you the very sad details coming out of Utah, the murder of Charlie Kirk. We are still waiting for more key updates into this investigation, but we want to talk to those that knew Charlie Kirk and really understood what his messaging was about and what he was trying to really convey, not only to the rest of the country, but even those that didn't agree with him as well. I do want to bring in our next guest here. This is Cameron Kinsey, who knew Charlie Kirk and is a former President Trump White House official. Cameron, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Given the very sad circumstances, I appreciate you coming on such short notice. And it's a horrible day.
It's a horrible day, and this will be remembered forever in our nation's history. And first and foremost, my heart goes out to Erica, her beautiful children. It's such a sad day, and my heart hurts for her. I can't even imagine losing my husband and having my children. So let's just pray for her and her family.
I know it's deeply troubling when you think about the family and everyone that's just left behind when this incident happened. And when you heard about the initial reaction, you get those push alerts, and then you go on maybe places like X, and then you're seeing the real horrible images that came out of this. I mean, what was your first reactions when you saw this?
I think my first reaction, obviously being in politics, you get desensitized from a lot of things. And I think a lot of people suffered from that today, posting the video online. And we have to remember in these dark times that he's human. He has a wife. He has kids, I think, under the age of 3. And so it's really important to note to just not share that video or that video footage. But I was in quite a bit of shock. My friend, who I actually met through Turning Point, was there today. And so she was giving me on-the-ground updates, as well as a former colleague of mine who's another good friend who I worked in the White House with. We were both just scrolling, refreshing. But I think a lot of us didn't want to believe the news. I was listening to Megyn Kelly earlier, and we saw where just the news had come out. John Solomon had reported and pronounced that he passed, and I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to wait until AP was coming out. I was just in complete shock, and it's truly devastating, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's so horrible. And, this is an event where he goes to different college campuses and will freely talk to people that don't agree with him and just really trying to find some sort of common ground when it comes to this crazy world of politics. And for this to happen where you can't even say what's on your mind, it's really disheartening.
It is, and I really hope that this is a turning point in our nation's history. Charlie Kirk was, just a thought leader in today's conservative movement, and he was somebody who encouraged us to disagree at times, have healthy debates. He was such a kind soul. He was a man of faith, a man of God, and really lived and died by the sword, per se. And so it's quite devastating. And I really hope that everyone in the conservative movement, the tens of thousands of people that have rallied behind him, that have been awakened and emboldened because of Turning Point USA, continues this message, because it is so important. It goes beyond politics. It is about faith. And I pray that we have a spiritual revival in this country.
And what was Charlie like when the camera wasn't on, when the microphone wasn't there? What was he like just in passing, getting to know him?
Well, I think why so many individuals loved him is because he's so relatable and he's so genuine, he's authentic, and he's a great family man. And that's why so many people loved him, is just because they could relate to him. It wasn't just another talking head who was saying one thing and doing another behind closed doors. He was openly advocating for strong family values and was very principled. His work ethic was unmatched. A lot of the Turning Point family will say the same about that. Charlie and his work were very cohesive. We're basically one. And so he saw his work family as his real family as well. And that's why he just touched so many lives. And so, I mean, I got the privilege of going to Arizona for their wedding reception for him and to celebrate him and Erica. Months prior to that, I watched the 2020 presidential election unfold from the West Wing with him and his wife, Erica. And so I'm really glad I get to look back on those moments. I also look back on the moments when I was 19. I was first getting into politics. And the first thing that I did was start a Turning Point USA chapter on the University of Louisville's campus. The first thing I did was become a Turning Point USA ambassador and travel to some of those different events and connect with like-minded individuals. And so that just speaks a lot to Charlie, that I've, you know, a lot about my decision making moving forward, and the friends that I've been able to connect with along the way have everything to do with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. And that should be a testament to the kind of man that he is, able to connect like-minded people and really leave his legacy behind, not only in his two beautiful children and his beautiful wife, but in the tens of thousands of Americans that he's emboldened as well.
I think what so many people connected with Charlie and really gravitated towards him was the fact that he was able to say things that maybe you were thinking, but you couldn't really say it because you were in school or your work wouldn't allow it. But at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, there's people like that are like-minded like me, and he's able to say it.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was 19 years old, it was such a sad time in our country. We were so divided with BLM and the riots breaking out. College campuses were wreaking havoc. That was just chaotic. And it was just a sad time in our country. And I remember standing firm in my beliefs and in my convictions and standing with our law enforcement officers back then. And I was getting ridiculed. I was being canceled. And I remember Charlie Kirk just making sure, checking in, making sure that I was standing strong through that. And even towards my White House journey, working for President Trump, he was one of the first people who called me, congratulated me. He called the White House, said, and put in a great word, which is so near and dear to my heart. I cannot thank him enough for that. And a lot of where I am today wouldn't have happened without Charlie Kirk and without this movement. And so I think we should remember that. And it's not just a testament to me and what I've accomplished, but just how many lives that he really has touched. And I'm sure there are countless other individuals right now posting and sharing the impact that he's had on their lives as well.
And Cameron, how does this momentum continue? How does TPUSA continue so that his message can continue to resonate? Who picks up that baton and continues this to the next levels?
Well, I think we've seen throughout history that they have tried to silence us. They have tried to scare us. They have tried to cancel us. And this is only going to do the opposite. This is going to embolden so many individuals to speaking about their beliefs, continuing this message of not just fighting for our country, but fighting to bring faith back into this country as well, because we need God right now. We truly need God. We need to dive into the scriptures, and we really just need a spiritual revival in this country, because I have seen so many instances and messages and posts about celebrating this time in history, and it is disgusting, and these people need to look in the mirror. And so I pray that they find Jesus, and I also just pray that we continue this messaging, that we not become